Hi, everybody. I have an initial question to start off with. You could please raise your hands when I ask it. Who here has been affected by COVID-19? That's the answer I was expecting. Almost everyone in the room. And a little over a year ago, our lives changed in a way that we would not have anticipated. COVID-19, an almost mythical and faraway sickness, started to spread across the world at an alarming rate, altering the way that we go about our lives. Even the words that I'm speaking right now are not even close to showcasing the effect that this virus has had on us. For my project, I wanted to try and capture the struggle of a certain demographic during the pandemic. I decided to stick with a group of people that I could relate to, college students and their experiences at school during the COVID-19 pandemic. And my name is Margaret Correll. I am an English major with a journalism and professional communication concentration or emphasis. I was unsure what to focus on for my project initially. Being a journalism and professional communication emphasis, I was quite lost when trying to decide what to do. Before the start of the fall semester, my Hum 461 professor, Dr. Christina Holland, contacted me and asked what I was thinking about for my project. A little defeated, I told her that my initial topic fell through, and I had not thought of another yet. She guided me to the conclusion that can be seen today, with a topic that is personal and important to me. After that conversation, I felt confident that I had found a topic that could stand up to my journalistic skills and meet all of the necessary criteria for the class. I was inspired by my own experiences of the pandemic thus far, seeing that it was only July at the time and I had no clue what was going to unfold the following school year. I determined that there was a story to be told, a story of students preparing for their future in school while living in a life-changing world. This was an experience that no one had ever overcome in our lifetime, and I found that this was the most important aspect of the project. This is when I came up with the idea to interview fellow students and recent graduates and learn more about their lives during the COVID-19 pandemic, while including a piece about myself and how student journalism has impacted the flow of information from college campuses. The process of my writing was unlike anything I had done before. Scheduling interviews and thinking up concepts to include in my project. I spent days writing questions and video calling my interviewees to inquire about their lives since the COVID-19 pandemic started. I tried to structure the pieces that I wrote in the same way as what I knew from writing on the Clarion. However, this did not work in the context of my project, as these pieces were more profiles rather than news articles. In this project, I wanted the interviews to be the star of the show, so to speak. They are pieces that I want everyone who reads it to focus on. Along with these interviews are my personal profile and the student newspaper article that summarizes the entire project with a look into how student newspapers have impacted journalism in the past year. Adding in my own experience as editor-in-chief of Brevard College's student newspaper, this is the final piece that ties everything together. Along the way, I did discard a few pieces that I do not think fit into what I was working with. They were more research-oriented and did not match the flow of the project. It was very difficult trying to work on this project, and I think I met my match. Trying to work on an event that is not concluded and is continuing to unfold when trying to finish a project, this is hard. But that's the nature of journalism, I guess. You always have to be prepared for a breaking news story. For the bulk of my project, the interviews that I conducted focused on 3 different groups of college students from across North Carolina. And while these are just a small number of students in college during the pandemic, I wanted to show some variety in college or university size, the area in which the student goes to school, and what year in their studies they are. For the 2 recent graduates who graduated in May 2020, I chose Elliot Young from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and Carmen Boone from Brevard College. Their questions were tailored to them, focusing on their losses after moving online in the middle of their last semester, their struggles or successes finding a job, and what their hopes for their future are. Next, I chose 2 seniors, Jen Cox from Brevard College and JP Barringer from Duke University. Since I'm in the same boat as them, I wanted to know about their experiences this year, what they feel like they missed out on, what they feel like their school has done right or wrong, and what their plans are after graduation. And lastly, I chose two freshmen, Jacob Horner from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and Margaret Correll, my brother, from Western Carolina University. For these two, I wanted to know what they were looking forward to in college. Had any of these ideas changed since getting there? Had they struggled at all during the past year? And some things that they wish could be different about this year. All of these interviews were conducted with individuals that I know personally, so I could have some prior knowledge of their situation before the interview, and so we could have a nicer dialogue throughout. During the course of the fall and spring semester, I followed up with each interview regularly to maintain an updated look at their situation. Like I said before, this is a story that's still developing and will continue to develop even after the presentation is over. I tried to structure each of the profiles chronologically, adding in pictures of the workspaces, quarantine rooms, tweets, and even poetry excerpts to try and capture each of the person's feelings about the pandemic. And I came to the conclusion from working with each person that this is not an isolated feeling. Regardless of the age of the student, the feelings of sadness, loneliness, anxiousness of what the future holds are widespread amongst them. I aim to show the similarity to lessen the gap between each individual, which is especially needed in a time like it is now. Along with the interviews and at the suggestion of Dr. Padgett, I included some data that would put the profile in context with the time that it was conducted. In the document itself, I listed the COVID-19 US cases and the deaths, as well as the worldwide cases and deaths from the day that the interview was conducted. I also included the New York Times COVID-19 front page headlines from each day to try and insert my project into the bigger journalistic picture that the nation is trying to tackle. The first headline, at the top, was from June 10th, and it spans all the way down to December 10th. When it's aligned like it is here, it really shows the snowball effect of the pandemic and how it's transformed from simple testing to lack of bed space in hospitals due to the sheer amount of people who are sick. And while I wanted the 6 interviews to be the pieces of my project to stand out, I wanted to include my experience with COVID-19. I'm going to read a few excerpts from my personal piece titled My Personal Experience from the COVID-19 Pandemic. The pandemic started hitting the US during an extremely inconvenient time for me. As a student athlete playing tennis on a spring break trip in Orlando, Florida, almost 9 hours away from Brevard. This was not the best time to get news that our entire season was going to be canceled after only playing 4 matches as a women's team. Our shock and devastation had not set in yet, and would not until the coming weeks when Brevard College decided to turn fully virtual for the remainder of the semester. The break was great while it lasted. We enjoyed our time at the resort and soaked up the sun before even thinking that the pandemic was going to get as bad as it eventually got. And after a crushing end to our season, I started to work for the summer while anticipating my senior year and the potential for it to be ruined as well. Even after working with the general public for that entire summer, I did not contract the virus, thankfully. And this excerpt details how just when my spring senior tennis season was supposed to start, I was the first person on the team to test positive for COVID-19. Moving forward into the start of 2021, the worst of the worst occurred. I somehow contracted COVID-19. This was my worst fear, and I still to this day have no clue where I got it from. I had minor symptoms up to that point, but not thinking that it could possibly be the dreaded coronavirus. I brushed it off until I couldn't take it anymore. I rushed to Brevard College and informed Deb Deanna, Dean of Students, that I could test positive and to look out for my test. She let me know via email a day later that I was being placed in quarantine, and from there I had to let my team know. The sickness interrupted my final semester and the start of my last tennis season. Luckily, I was not hit extremely hard, and from a medical point of view, I was not in critical need of care, showing that I had made it through. With body aches, a runny nose, fatigue, and the loss of taste and smell for about a week, it seemed I was let off easily. But no matter what anyone says or how easily some people have recovered from COVID-19, it was still one of the worst sicknesses I've ever experienced. Every day was a struggle, and just getting up in the morning was enough to put me back to sleep for at least 3 hours in the afternoon. I am fortunate to have recovered fully and to be able to play tennis again with little to no change on how my body operates. But experiencing the virus firsthand can change a person and their perspective on how the country is treating the pandemic. And with these excerpts and my interviews, I've concluded that all experiences from this pandemic are valid. Showcasing who you are, where you come from, and how you've been impacted can shed some light on COVID-19 a little bit better. I felt that my experience mattered just as much as my interviewees and needed to be written because everyone has a story to tell. My student newspaper article was the last article I wrote and the one that deserved a special place at the end of my project. In the context of this project, it serves as the final wrap-up piece. I based my writing on an article from the Washington Post titled "College Newspaper Reporters Are the Journalism Heroes of the Pandemic Era." And I wanted to use this time to conduct a bit of research. I looked into the Daily Tar Heels editorial that was heard around the world. We all saw this coming. And their colorful choice of words to describe how UNC Chapel Hill was handling the pandemic. I also looked at other schools mentioned in the article, ones like the Independent Florida Alligator and the student newspaper of the University of Florida, and the Daily Gamecock, which is the student newspaper of the University of South Carolina, and how they've been serving their community while simultaneously keeping their universities in check. I wanted to show this correlation between student journalists from big schools to small, and the Clarion at Brevard College was the perfect fit for the small college newspaper take on the pandemic. As a paper and the paper's leader, I tried to work a lot this year on holding the college accountable, especially when our health is on the line. I modeled my leadership and some of our content after those larger papers that came before us. I wanted to not blindly follow what the administration was giving us, but ask the tough questions and make sure that we, our readers, are receiving the full and transparent truth. This article seemed to finish out my project's content and bring an end to a year-long task that was finally over. For my final portion of this presentation, I'm going to read my project's epilogue. This concludes my project and perfectly summarizes my feelings towards the pandemic this year and what I'm hoping for the future. As of early April, the COVID-19 cases have reached 30.9 million across the United States, and the death toll has reached a horrifying 556,000, according to Johns Hopkins University. With over a year into this pandemic, something that we see as normal now, the struggles for students have not gotten any easier. While the vaccine for COVID-19 is slowly being dispersed across the globe, college students are still struggling to find their place and continue on with their lives as if the world is in order. Campuses have had to rewire themselves to stay afloat, and students have had to work harder along with the mental health toll that it takes on the human mind. It may seem that everything is falling into place, but do not let the lack of mask wearing fool you. There are still struggling students, faculty, and staff that must deal with the consequences of the entire United States and how late the virus was noticed. As a student finishing up my last year of my undergraduate degree, I could not have found a worse time to achieve this life goal. I did not ask for this, and I wish the past year had played out differently. I pray as a student that the world reaches some kind of relative normalcy in the months to come, if that word even comes close to its original meaning. This project is meant to highlight these struggles, specifically of us students and the campuses that they attend. Trying to function as an institution and as a full-time college student during a global pandemic is a feat that no one has ever had to overcome in our lifetime. These experiences by students are important. They are meant to be heard. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to listen and hear what actual students are experiencing in their lives during a pandemic. And I hope with some of the work that is being done, future graduates will experience college the same as I have in years past. Thank you. Questions? Give me one. Yes.
Do you see yourself, I know you, so I know you're going to continue with journalism in the future, but do you see yourself keeping up with this? Like, maybe continuing this work as the pandemic, progresses or hopefully goes away?
We talked about that in my committee meeting, and I think that would be something I would be interested in, just because I do know all of the people that I spoke to, that I interviewed, and it would be easy for me to keep up with it. And like I said, this is a ongoing issue that's still progressing. I think that would be something interesting, to see where everybody is in like 6 months, a year or so. That would be something really good to add to this.
You mentioned the breaking news aspect of all of this.
Yeah.
Of course, there were new mask mandates issued yesterday by the CDC, and I saw an alert on my phone that Governor Cooper was going to be issuing something, or saying something about mask mandates today. So I have no idea what they are yet. But again, just trying to stay ahead of this.
That's again, we talked about that in the committee meeting, but that's something I really struggled with, was trying to keep up with the sheer amount of stuff that was going on. Just new and developing stories every single day. That's something that was a challenge for me, just trying to keep up with everything that was happening. Something's happening every single hour of every single day. It's a daunting task to try to put this all into one thing and have it stay, because everything's just developing every day. So, any other questions? No.
Thank you, Margaret.